All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Correct Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today we're going to pick up on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation lawsuit extravaganza. It has been wild viewing so far. Someone allegedly pooped on the bed. Someone allegedly went to Coachella. 2 days ago, Amber's frazzled lawyer objected to his own question in possibly the funniest courtroom moment I've seen in years. Amber's lawyers are getting frazzled. They're getting a little rattled. It's not easy to make a psycho look like a victim. So they're up there getting rattled, and Amber's lawyer is questioning a house manager that worked at one of the houses they rented, was there for 10 hours a day. You see a lot when you're there for 10 hours a day. And Amber's lawyer is questioning him, saying something like, "Isn't it true you don't know what happened to Johnny's hand?" And the house manager's like, "Well, the doctor told me." And the lawyer goes, "Object, hearsay." And the judge goes, "That was your question." And Johnny's team busts out laughing. I mean, it has been wild viewing. We are 10 days in. That whole 10 days, Johnny's side is making their case. So they're calling staff that was around them a lot, that saw it all. Amber's assistant was a no-nonsense Australian woman. Great witness. Was like, yeah, Amber's kind of mean. And then Johnny's up there for, 4 or 5 full days. And I got the feeling that Amber's side, because they get one shot, the way I understand it, you get one shot at Johnny. He's up on the stand. He's under oath. He's suing Amber for $50 million. So they get their one shot to get the jury to look at Johnny the way that they want the jury to look at Johnny, and I don't know if they did. And as the hours were running out for Mr. Rottenborn is at the helm of Amber's lawyer team. He's reading texts that he thinks make Johnny look awful. So he'll read a text and go, "Did I read that right?" And Johnny goes, "You did, Mr. Rottenborn. Did I read that right? Did I read that right? Did I read that right?" And it just kept going on. He's going, "You did, Mr. Rottenborn." And the texts were graphic. Johnny has a way of writing where he's like, "I awoke like a demon from hell and poured a bottle of whiskey down my throat." And so Mr. Rottenborn's thinking, yeah, this really shows what we're trying to show. But I don't know if it did. And if I was... it would keep coming up, "Yeah, that's how Johnny writes. I write like that, I would have said, if I was his lawyers, I would have said, "Listen, Johnny writes like store brand Hunter S. Thompson." But can you blame him? Probably the most meaningful roles he ever played was Hunter. I'm sure he had to read all of Hunter's writing to get into those roles. He literally pretended to be Hunter for a portion of his life in his work. And now you get generic Hunter in the text. It's not the first time that it's happened. Anyone that reads Hunter for a while, he has such a fun writing style. And a lot of Hunter's characters are just despicable to everybody they meet in the whole story, which is kind of funny because it's like a fantasy to go down that. It's fiction. He's got a fun writing style, but pretty much everybody that reads a bunch of it for the next day or two, you're talking like Hunter and writing like Hunter. And with Johnny, who I think looked up to Hunter. Hunter was his best friend. He emulates his life, his work, the whole thing. If I was Johnny's lawyer, I'd been like, yeah, all the text about just, how he writes, I think that's just kind of store brand Hunter. Another solid journalist named Matt Taibbi a couple years ago was getting in the process of maybe getting canceled, or they were kind of trying to cancel him for a book that he wrote years ago. And people were like, this book that Matt Taibbi wrote years ago, the characters are mean and misogynistic and all this stuff. And he just came out and said it. He was like, yeah, I was trying to write like Hunter, and no one really can. I mean, Hunter could do it. He had his thing. And when you try to emulate it and pretend you're Hunter, you kind of just come off as an asshole a lot of the times. So that's what I would have said to that. But Mr. Rottenborn really thought those text messages was going to seal the deal for him. Did I read that right? You did, Mr. Rottenborn. You really can't write this stuff. The smarmy lawyer's name is actually Mr. Rottenborn. It's almost too much. But like I said, so Johnny was up there. You can watch his whole testimony. It's not easy, they're getting mad. And I just kept thinking during the anticipation for Amber to get up on the stand under oath is building. And I would guess that maybe Johnny's side is going to take the rest of this week. And then pretty soon, Amber is going to be up there, just like Johnny, for hours. Well, a psychiatrist or a head doctor of some sort that met with Amber for hours and hours and gave her all these tests and knew what she was doing, diagnosed Amber with a couple personality disorders. And a couple symptoms of those personality disorders is it's really hard for Amber to feel like she's being slighted, or it's hard for her to take those without getting really angry and blowing up and letting that side of herself rear its ugly head. And so I'm thinking, is she going to be able to handle herself up on the stand? It was hard enough for Johnny, who seems like when he's not boozing is a pretty even-keeled guy, and even the parts where you could tell he was fuming and wanted to jump over the table and squeeze Mr. Rottenborn's neck, he handled it pretty well. He laughed it off. And so, like I said, the anticipation for Amber, is she going to be able to handle it? Is she going to blow up? I mean, the psychological disorders that she has, it's not going to be easy to sit up there for hour after hour while a lawyer tries to paint you as the absolute worst version of yourself. And you kind of just have to take it like, okay, so like I said, we're 10 days in. It's been all Johnny's side so far. A lot of just the staff that's around him a lot. Amber's assistant, house manager that's there for 10 hours a day. Yesterday was just that head doctor, pretty much there the whole time, saying, this is what my findings were, talking to, looking into Amber, and it's not great. And today's day 10. They think the whole thing's going to last 5 or 6 weeks. So we're in this for a little bit. But for the rest of this episode, I want to talk about the op-ed. I would call it a press release. But when you boil this down, Johnny is suing Amber for an op-ed that she wrote and then published in the Washington Post. Came out in 2018. And Amber's lawyer, Mr. Rottenborn, read that op-ed in the opening statement, and I had never heard it before, and it comes off as Jussie Smollett level, delusional, trying to kick-flip the whole thing, spin the story into like she's a Me Too victim. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm going to establish just a little bit of a timeline because, like I said, that op-ed was strategic press release because her movie career was totally tanking. She thought she was going to come out of the whole divorce in 2016 as a victim. She was going to go on the offensive, allegedly paint a bruise on the side of her face with some makeup, get a restraining order. Everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, you're such a victim. Wow, I'm sorry about that. And that's just not what happened. So let's establish just a quick timeline. Their marriage is beyond in the toilet in 2015 and 2016. Johnny Depp testified on the stand in 2016 after some of these just rip-roaring fights. The detailed story of her hucking a massive vodka bottle at him, hitting his finger, severing the tip of his finger. I mean, just wild fights on a level that I think most people are probably watching this whole thing going, man, the little fights that me and my wife have are nothing. Holy God. And so their marriage is beyond in the toilet. Johnny Depp testified that he was the first one being like, well, you can't do this anymore. He was going on tour with his band but saying, we're done. That's when she allegedly made a big show of like using makeup to make it look like she has a bruise and went down, made a big show of getting a restraining order, which Johnny said on the stand, it looked like he thought that was a little funny because he was like, I told her that and then I left the country. So she got a restraining order against someone that wasn't anywhere near her, had just been begging her to not come anywhere near him, saying, we got to have space. This is not normal. And so the big restraining order, obviously a high-profile couple, like she knew what she was doing, right? And she even admitted in one of the many recordings that came out, right? She got this big restraining order and then broke the restraining order and invited Johnny Depp to come over and talk, and someone recorded that, and Johnny Depp is going in that, he's going something like, Amber, the abuse stuff, you gotta stop, saying you don't push that narrative because it's not true. This abuse stuff has got to stop. And Amber says something like, well, I had no choice. Your team went on the offensive. So right there, she's already not talking about the situation as like, is someone being abused? She's talking about it on who's going to win the divorce. She perceived his team on going on the offensive. So then her team felt like they needed to do the big show with the makeup bruise. Oh my God, temporary restraining order, totally dramatic. Well, a high-profile couple like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, that's going to cause a bunch of news stories, which is no accident. That's what Amber wanted this whole time. She is trying to spin her image out of this terrible divorce in the way that she can salvage a movie star career. Because if she's branded as the drama-filled mean psycho, it's pretty easy for someone casting a movie just, let's just go on to the next pretty blonde. Amber didn't do anything or star in any movie or do anything really with their acting that made her the one you had to have. She's replaceable at this point, right? It's like, okay, even though that was a good audition, a lot of baggage comes with Amber. Did you see so as the divorce falls apart, and even as the marriage was heading towards certain end, I think Amber had big anxiety, like, man, I am not going to come out looking great on this divorce. Like, Johnny has his lows, and I've gotten a lot of those I've recorded them, but I still am not going to come out as the victim, which that's what I want. I want to be the victim. And I think that's how, as the marriage is ending and heading towards certain doom, that's why she tried to get all those recordings of him. And just think, being in a relationship where the person's goal is to get you at your worst and then to get a recording of you to hopefully come out of the divorce that's going to be public in a way that, she can continue her movie star career. So like she said, her own words, I thought your team was going on the offensive, so I had no choice to come out with the narrative that I was abused and all this stuff. And this is still in 2016. So all of these stories come out about Johnny, and there's definitely two different worlds, right? There's the general public and then the world of Hollywood and those gossip papers. And the real world, the people, getting on, living a real life, they don't really care about the stupid gossip papers. But the people in Hollywood that cast people and decide who's going to work and stuff, they have to care about those papers, right? They can't have a big, as you're putting all this money to tell a story and to make a movie, they don't want someone in the movie to have all these news stories clouding this big movie or the story that they want to tell. And so Amber knew, okay, we're going to get the whole news gossip column, terrible newspapers is going to start going. And so we want to be ahead of it, where I am the victim, Johnny's the miserable drunk, abuser, and it just didn't work. That's what they were going for in 2016, and that is not, the papers, they played their part, they did the negative stories, but the general public and the whole kind of just vibe of the whole thing, she didn't look like a victim. Anybody that looks into the recordings, a lot of them have been up on YouTube for years, 2-3 years, and if you even go back and look at those, it's staggering the support for Johnny. All men, women, both sides of the political aisle, pretty much everybody has been for Johnny, and that has probably felt weird for Amber and her team because they're going, well, what do we got to do? We put all these news stories out, and it's because so much recordings and, this whole thing isn't rocket science. If you take a couple hours and you watch the trial and you listen to the recordings, I think everybody goes, oh, okay. I hear it and I see it. Okay, yeah, Johnny's definitely not, it's not just as simple as Johnny is the mean drunk and Amber is the innocent great victim. Okay, so we're picking up. It's 2016. I'm sure Amber and her team are going, wow, our whole media blitz to spin the narrative that I'm the victim didn't work. All of the comments on anything that comes out are pro Johnny. Her lawyer is the one that said her movie career started to just flatline because, again, she was not a made person in Hollywood. She hasn't done enough. Starred in showed off like, wow, that really is special talent that couldn't be replaced by anyone else. And so I think as she is going, I was not able to paint myself as the victim. My movie career is not going well. I think as a year goes by, 2017 goes by again, so maybe like 2 years go by. In the late 2017 was the height of the Me Too movement. From 2017 into 2018. And I think where Amber found herself is like in a canoe with no oars, both in life and her career, just floating in a windless, calm ocean, going, no one thinks I'm the victim? Oh no. And then all of a sudden, she's thinking, I'm not in a good spot. She sees the big Me Too wave coming, and she goes, this is my opportunity. It's been 2 years since this disastrous divorce where I didn't come out looking great. But if you think about 2 years, that's a long time. I mean, people sort of start to forget, oh yeah, her and Johnny Depp were in that awful divorce 2 years ago, but I don't know, I don't really remember too much of it. So I think her and her team saw the wave of the Me Too, saw an opportunity to rebrand the whole thing, to spin the narrative. They knew the media would love, all those gossip papers just salivate at the thought of a story of Johnny Depp being an abuser, Amber Heard, all of this stuff. And so they're salivating, and I think Amber's team and Amber thought, all right, this is our time, the time with the Me Too. We are going to come out with an op-ed. Like I said, I'm calling it a press release. So she pens this op-ed. Some of the parts of it that are going to come up, I think, in this trial, which these are the chunks that she's pretty much getting sued for $50 million for. She starts out by saying, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic violence. And this is what I mean. This whole thing reads like a press release. She's essentially giving this op-ed to the Washington Post, knowing that all the gossip papers, Hollywood, Variety, who cares, all of them are going to go, yes, and start writing the story, and it's going to be a whole nother wave, but instead of just a disastrous divorce, it's going to be a Me Too scandal. The whole thing is going to be rebranded. So she goes, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. Well, here's the thing. The only person that's saying she was representing domestic abuse is her. No one else described her as that. Anybody with half a brain that takes the time to look into all this stuff would laugh saying that she is the face of domestic abuse. It's insulting. Like Jussie Smollett case, he gets into the grounds of insulting to someone that's really being, going through brutal domestic abuse. And I think I already said it, but if not, her team and her wrote this and then gave it to a lawyer, and the lawyer meticulously went through it being like, yeah, all right, it meets. So that's why every little thing I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. The whole thing is worded like I want to say this stuff about Johnny and paint Johnny in a certain light, but I don't want to get sued for it. So Amber's whole side's argument is, we never said his name, didn't say his name, get to say whatever I want because I didn't say his name, sorry. All right, so she starts off by saying that she is the face, of the face of domestic abuse. And it's just like, well, no one else thinks that but you. And then the next part is one part she goes, I saw how institutions protect men accused of abuse. And so now she's trying to swing the whole thing where Johnny's like a Weinstein character. And if you just accused of abuse from one woman who has been diagnosed with a whole, mess of issues, and there's recordings out that don't support any of that, why wouldn't, do you think Johnny should never be able to work ever again? You think the institution should flush him down the institution hole because one person accused him of something? I mean, that's just not going to come out the way her and her team were hoping. Once again, the op-ed press release to become a Me Too victim. I am now a victim. Yes. It just, once again, it didn't come off right. And then the third part, she goes, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. You faced the culture's wrath, Amber, because everybody can feel it in their gut after taking in what happened as you're trying to ruin Johnny and you don't come off as a victim. And so Johnny was a part of the terrible marriage, but he wanted to let's just go our separate ways. And then she starts the ruining campaign. Well, that is automatically, if the general public feels someone is being ruined and they don't deserve it, of course they're going to go on that side. So it's this just constantly where Amber is having these plans like, all right, this is going to swing the whole thing where I'm a victim, and then it doesn't work. And now it's like a lot of these cases where, you see someone that kills someone, or you see like Jussie Smollett in court, or, somebody where you can't help but look at him and go, look where you got yourself. How did you get yourself in this position where a head doctor is going on for hours and hours about how your psychological disorders lead to behavior like this? I mean, she really probably didn't think in a million years that some of her behaviors, couple of her disorders, the symptoms are, people are very shallow, people are filled with drama, totally unstable, like instability comes with all of them. And I guess just the point I keep making over and over again is, despite her best efforts and trying to spin the whole thing, she does not come off as a victim. And if your whole case is she is a victim, you see her team of lawyers, Rottenborn, the guy that, I object to myself. I think we're going to keep seeing moments like that. So, like I said, today starts day 10. I don't know how much longer Johnny's side needs. I think they've kind of made their case, and then it will be very interesting to see the strategy of Amber's side, specifically Amber Heard getting up there under oath. I'm sure they're teaching her and coaching her and telling her, you got to breathe up there. You can't have an outburst. You can't show that you're mad. When the head doctor was up there yesterday, Amber was furious. That was hard to hear. The borderline personality disorder. This is how people act. This is how Amber acted. I mean, even when Johnny was up there, she was just kind of sitting there. She was okay. But yesterday, she would write something on the paper and then look and then go like this and then take a drink and then make a big point to say something to Rottenborn, like smiling, like, yeah, even though this woman is diagnosing me with very personal, even though this is really hard to hear, I'm just going to say something to you and smile like nothing is bothering me at all. And like I said, the anticipation for her getting up there is growing by the day. So I am going to cut it off here, start watching today, and then probably try to post every time I have an episode together on it. And as this thing moves to the end, Johnny is suing Amber for $50 million because you can't just brand someone a Me Too abuser to spin your own failing movie career and just get all of the papers to write a whole nother wave of awful stories about Johnny that aren't true. So he's saying, you can't do that, okay? 2 years, that's a long time. 2 years after this divorce, you can't do that. And then Amber is countersuing him for $100 million. So here we are, 2 movie stars in Fairfax County, Virginia, where the Washington Post servers were the initial op-ed press release. So Fairfax, Virginia. I'm sure they both rented houses. They got their whole teams down there. Amber's hair looks great every single day, so I'm sure has to get up early in Virginia and have her hairstylist start the braiding and everything. I mean, the whole thing is just totally fascinating. Big money is on the line. Reputations are on the line. Movie star careers are on the line. Somehow we get to watch all of it live. It's unbelievable. So I'm going to cut it off there. I'll see you soon. I love you all. Why? Stiven Y. Shamita.